A young man is walking down a quiet road, just minding his business, moving through a neighborhood that clearly was not built for him. He notices a car following him. Slow, steady, deliberate. He turns around, and in one swift moment, someone reaches out from that white car and takes him. Just like that. Gone. Cut to Chris and Rose. A couple. Happy. In love. Or at least that is what it looks like. Chris knows the deal, though. Rose is white. Her family is white. The town they are heading to is white. And Chris is black. That equation has never been comfortable in this country, and Chris knows it deep in his bones. But Rose is not just dating him. She wants to take him home, introduce him to her parents, make it official. And that makes Chris nervous. Not because he is insecure, but because he has lived in this skin long enough to know what certain rooms feel like before you even walk into them. He mentally prepares himself, builds his walls, tells himself he can handle whatever comes. But he still needs to say it out loud to someone. So he calls his best friend and tells him exactly where he is going and exactly why it feels off. He says the family might not like black people, that he might get turned away before he even gets through the door. His friend does not sugarcoat it. He laughs and says he is worried this girl is walking Chris straight into a trap. Chris laughs too, brushes it off. They hang up, and then the drive begins. Rose behind the wheel. The road is long and quiet, and then suddenly a deer cuts across, and the car hits it. The animal dies on impact. Both of them are shaken. Chris does not hesitate. Even though Rose was driving, he takes responsibility and calls the police. Because that is who he is. A good person. Clean conscience. The officer arrives and asks for Chris's ID. Not Rose's. Not the driver's. Chris's. Just because he is standing there black next to a white woman's car. Rose does not let that slide. She steps forward and tells the officer directly. She was driving. The car is hers. She has the papers and the license. They arrive at the house. And to Chris's genuine surprise, the family is warm. Welcoming. No tensión. No awkward looks. Rose's father shakes his hand and smiles and gives him a full tour like he belongs there. He even brings Chris to a family photo, points to a picture of his own father, and explains that the man ran in the Olympics and came in second, because a black man came in first. And the way he says it, there is almost pride there. Chris walks through the house and notices the help. The housekeeper, the gardener, both black. He clocks it, thinks about it. Before the thought can settle, Rose's father explains it himself. Says he hired them to care for his elderly parents. When the parents passed, he could not just let them go. Kept them on, treated them like family. Chris exhales. His guard lowers a little. His respect for this man quietly grows. They all sit outside together. The afternoon light is soft. The conversation flows. They ask Chris about his family, and he opens up. Explains that his mother passed away when he was young, and after that his father moved on. It is a painful thing to carry, but the way Rose's father reacts to it is strange. Something flickers across his face. A quiet satisfaction, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. Like information he needed to hear. Then the father asks if Chris smokes. Chris says yes, but he is working on quitting. The father lights up and says his wife can help with that. She is skilled in hypnosis. Used it to help him quit himself. Chris smiles politely and says no thank you. The idea that years of habit can just be erased in one sitting feels like an exaggeration. He does not want that. He declines. Dinner comes. Everyone around the table. Conversation. Food. Normalcy. But Chris keeps catching the housekeeper staring at him. Not a casual glance. A long, deep, unblinking stare. Then Rose's brother shows up, and the energy shifts immediately. He makes comments that feel like tests. Tries to goad Chris into something physical. Chris stays calm and refuses to engage. He is smarter than the bait. Later in their room, Rose apologizes for her brother. Chris says it is fine. They try to sleep. Rose goes out almost immediately. But Chris cannot. Something in this house is sitting wrong, and he cannot name it. He gets up, steps outside into the dark, and the gardener comes sprinting at him out of nowhere. Full speed, no warning, and then runs straight past him, like Chris was not even there, like he was chasing something only he could see. Chris looks up at the house, and the housekeeper is standing at the window, staring down, those same blank eyes. He goes back inside, and the moment he walks through the door, Rose's mother smells the cigarette smoke on him. She sits him down before he can object. Something in her voice pulls at him in a way he cannot explain. He takes the seat. She holds a teacup, begins to stir the spoon slowly. She asks him about his mother, about the day she died. Chris stiffens. He does not want to go there, but the spoon keeps moving. Faster now, and then something in his mind just gives way. He is under, completely, tears running down his face, saying things he never planned to say. His body is still, but his mind is falling through something dark and endless. In that void, he can see and hear everything happening around him, but he cannot move, cannot speak, cannot stop any of it. He wakes up in bed the next morning, convinced it was a nightmare. The relief is immediate. He grabs his camera and heads outside to shake it off, wanders through the trees, takes some photos, comes back and runs into the gardener, tries to make small talk, and that is when it hits him. The man looks young, maybe mid-20s, but the way he speaks, the phrasing, the cadence, it belongs to someone much older, like a different person wearing that face. Then the gardener stops and asks Chris how his session went last night. Chris goes cold. The hypnosis was real. Everything he had convinced himself was a dream actually happened. He goes straight to Rose and tells her mother crossed a line, that putting him under without his consent was not something he agreed to. And here's the strange part. It worked. The thought of a cigarette now makes him physically ill. But that is not the point. He tells Rose he wants to leave. Right now. As he says it, a line of expensive cars starts pulling up outside. Guests arriving for a party. Rose asks him to stay just a little longer. He hesitates. And because he loves her, he agrees. Downstairs, the house fills up with people. All of them old. All of them white. Except for one young black man standing in the middle of all of it, dressed in the kind of clothes an old man picks out, speaking in a register that does not match his age. And beside him, a white woman, easily 30 years older, holding his arm like he is hers. Chris circulates, notices that every black person at this party is wearing a hat. The gardener, the housekeeper, all of them, covering their heads. He does not know why yet, but it unsettles him. He drifts to the edge of the room, and a blind man finds him, starts complimenting his photography. Specific details. Work he has never shown anyone here. Chris never mentioned being a photographer. The blind man talks about losing his own ability to create when his vision failed, then walks away like it was nothing. Chris goes upstairs. His phone is unplugged from a wall. The housekeeper is standing in the room. She apologizes and says she must have knocked it during cleaning. Chris tries to connect with her, tells her honestly that something feels wrong in this house, and he cannot shake it. She smiles wide and tells him this family is wonderful, that everything is fine. But while she says it, tears are streaming down her face. Not a few drops. Real grief. Pouring out of her while her mouth says the opposite. He calls his friend, tells him everything. The party, the old people, the black man who talks like someone else is behind his eyes. The hypnosis. His friend does not wait for more. He tells Chris to leave immediately. His read is that this family is running something dark and Chris is already inside it. Back at the party, someone brings up Chris's physique. Then someone else does. Then another person. They talk about his body with a clinical detachment of buyers at an auction. Chris gets his camera out and takes a photo of the young black man. The flash fires. The man's nose starts bleeding. Something breaks open his eyes, and suddenly he is grabbing Chris by the collar, screaming at him to get out. Get out now. Real urgency. Real terror. Like someone drowning, trying to scream above water. The guests pull him away fast. Shut him in a room. When they bring him back out, he is composed again. Apologetic. Rose's father explains it away as a medical condition. Bright flashes triggering panic attacks. Chris nods. Goes to the lake. Rose comes after him. He tells her he is scared and he needs to leave. She asks him to stay just a little longer. She will leave with him. Together. He trusts her, so he agrees. He sends a photo to his friend. His friend runs the face and calls back shaking. That man is not who the family says he is. His real name is Andre. He was reported missing 6 months ago. He is still missing. And Chris realizes he met him at the very beginning of this whole nightmare. That was the man in the car at the start. Chris starts packing. Rose comes in. He asks for the car keys. She says she does not have them, but she will find them. Her whole energy changes. Tight. Careful. She wants to know what is wrong. He says they need to go first, and he will explain in the car. She heads downstairs. While she is gone, Chris notices a closet door left slightly open. He looks inside and finds a box. Inside the box are photographs. Dozens of them. Rows with different men. All of them black. She had told him he was the first black man she ever dated. Every single photo contradicts that lie. And then he sees it. Faces he recognizes. The gardener. The housekeeper. They were boyfriends once too. The trap closes around him all at once. Rose is not a victim of her family. She is the mechanism. She finds young black men and brings them here. He grabs his bag and runs. The whole family is at the bottom of the stairs, waiting, blocking the door. He demands the keys. Rose pretends to cry. He tries to push through, and then her face changes completely. The warmth drains out of it. She holds up the keys and does not move. Her brother lunges, and before Chris can fight back, the sound of the spoon against the cup cuts through the air and his legs stop working. His mind falls into the dark again, and he hits the floor. His friend has been calling nonstop. He knows something is wrong. He goes to the police and reports everything. Missing black people. A white family with a hypnosis procedure. The police sit there and laugh at him. Think the story is absurd. So the friend decides he's going to have to do this himself. Chris wakes up in the basement, strapped to a chair he cannot move from. An old television set flickers on across from him. A recording starts playing. It explains everything. Rose's grandfather was a competitive runner. He lost a race to a black athlete and never recovered from it mentally. He became obsessed with the physical power he believed black bodies possessed. Faster, stronger, more resilient. And out of that obsession, he built a surgical procedure. A way for a wealthy, aging white person to be placed inside a young, healthy black body. The old brain goes in. The original person gets buried alive inside their own mind. Trapped in the dark void. Watching. Unable to speak. Unable to act. A passenger in the body they were born in. Chris is about to become the blind man's new body. He was purchased at the party. The blind man appears on screen now. Live. He explains it calmly. After the surgery, he will see again. He will move again. He will be young again. And Chris's mind will spend the rest of that life watching from somewhere it can never escape. Now everything makes sense. The housekeeper smiled while tears soaked her face. That was Rose's grandmother speaking words of comfort while the real girl, trapped inside, wept and could not stop it. The gardener always wearing his hat. There's a surgical scar underneath it. The young man who attacked Chris at the party was Andre. He had been through the procedure already. Someone else was living in his body. All of it connects. The hypnosis video starts playing on the screen again, and Chris looks at the chair he is bound to. The leather is worn and cracked. He starts working his fingers into the tear, pulling out cotton stuffing. Slow, quiet, packing it into his ears. The video plays. The sound of the spoon hits. Chris goes limp and pretends. He is awake behind the stillness. Upstairs, Rose's father is already in surgery. The blind man's skull is open. Time is moving. Rose's brother comes down to collect Chris, and Chris explodes out of the chair and takes him apart. The cotton earplugs blocked the hypnosis completely. When the brother does not come back up, the father goes to check. Chris is waiting in the dark with a heavy decorative deer statue. When the father appears, Chris drives the sharp antlers into his chest. He goes down. Chris moves toward the exit. Rose's mother steps into his path. She grabs her teacup, starts stirring fast. But Chris is already moving, and he knocks the cup out of her hand before the sound can reach him. It shatters on the floor. Without it, she is nothing. She grabs something to defend herself, but Chris overpowers her, and the struggle ends with her dead. The brother recovers from the basement and comes at Chris one more time. Chris puts him down again and keeps moving. He gets to the car, gets the keys going, pulls out into the dark, and then the headlights catch the housekeeper in the road. He hits her. He knows he should keep driving. Every survival instinct says keep moving. But lying there in his headlights, she reminds him of his mother. His mother died in a hit and run when he was a child. He was there. He did not call for help. He has carried that guilt his entire life. He stops. He pulls her into the car. Rose hears the commotion and comes outside with a rifle. Chris drives. Inside the car, the grandmother's consciousness breaks through. The old woman inside the housekeeper's body starts screaming at Chris that he destroyed her family. She grabs him, and the car loses control and smashes into a tree. The grandmother dies. Chris crawls out alive. Rose fires at him through the dark. He dodges. She calls out to the gardener. Her grandfather's brain is in control of that young man's body, and the old man is fast in his new form. He tackles Chris to the ground, hands around his throat. The world starts going black. Chris remembers the flash. He pulls out his phone and fires the camera light directly into the gardener's face. The old man's grip breaks. The real young man surfaces, his own mind flooding back into his own body. He looks at Chris on the ground, and he understands everything. He knows there's an old man's brain sitting inside his skull, and he knows it will take him back over soon. He walks toward Rose, plays the part, tells her he wants to finish this himself, and asks for the rifle. She hands it over without hesitation. He shoots her in the stomach. She drops. Then he turns the gun on himself, because the alternative is spending his life as a passenger. He refuses that. He pulls the trigger, and he is free. Chris walks over to Rose, bleeding on the road. She reaches for the gun. He kicks it away. He wraps his hands around her throat. She looks up at him and tries one last thing. Tells him she loves him, that she always did. Chris looks at her and sees through every single word. He keeps his hands where they are. Then lights, red and blue cutting through the trees. Chris freezes, raises his hands, because he knows what this looks like. A black man standing over a dying white woman. He knows how that story ends in this country. He braces for the worst. The car door opens, and it is his friend, who drove out here alone to find him, who believed him when nobody else would. Chris gets in the car, and they leave. Rose bleeds out on the road behind them, and that is how it ends.